got my gathered end hammock strung up underneath the Dutchware Asym Tarp. This is the wide Asym Tarp made with xenon fabric. We're about to have a big storm. 25-30 mile an hour sustained winds, upwards of an inch of rain, 2.5 centimeters. And I wanted to see if this little tarp, only 73 inches wide, would keep me dry. There's my hammock gear underquilt, and below that is the hammock. You can see the bottom edge of the tarp is above the bottom of the hammock by a lot. The bottom edge of the tarp here, about where my shoulder and my butt's going to be, about 90 centimeters to the ground. So the bottom of the hammock here, where it's hanging lowest, is about 50 centimeters to the ground. So there's 40 centimeters between here and here, and that will potentially allow the rain to get wind blown right into the side of the hammock, which is why I have my underquilt protector on there. From the tie out to the top of the tarp is about 50 centimeters. It'll be about 21 inches. Ridge line down to the corner, about 112 centimeters, about 45 inches. We'll find out if the underquilt protector is a mandatory piece of gear for this tarp. It's quite a bit of distance from here down to here that's open to the wind, so the wind could blow the rain right in on me. I'd say that's about 35 centimeters, a foot more or less. From the edge of the hammock to the edge of the tarp is about 40 centimeters. We're just starting to get some rain again. It's been a very wet day. It's been a windy day. The underquilt protector is not wet, either inside or outside. The underquilt's not wet. That's pretty amazing. So if you're in a really high wind like we are today and the ground is really soft, you take your tie out down to the stake, and then from the stake off to a secondary tie out, in this case a log, that will help keep the tarp from pulling this stake out of the ground. Also, if the tarp does pull the stake out of the ground, you'll still be tied off out here. Not a lot of room to maneuver, get dressed and undressed and do other things underneath this tarp. The hammock takes up most of the space. You don't want to brush up against your hammock with wet stuff, so that's another reason to have your underquilt protector on there. You want to be careful not to drip in the hammock. So you stand off to the side on the downwind side of the hammock and the tarp, the lee side.
I made a video similar to this on the War Bonnet mini fly tarp. A mini fly, I think, is 91 inches wide, and that actually did keep me dry all night during similar conditions. Normally, I don't use an underquilt protector. I rely on the tarp and the pitch to keep everything dry. If the underquilt protector and the underquilt don't get wet at all, that's phenomenal. But if it does, then we can see if the underquilt protector was enough to keep the underquilt dry, and if this really has to be a tarp and underquilt protector combination when you go into the field. Oh, the hammock's already rocking in the wind. And here comes the storm. Here we are in the rain. As long as the stakes hold, I think it might actually stay dry, but we will see. Famous last words. Stakes cut loose, then I'm soaked. I can feel just a little bit of mist.
Those stakes back there are still holding. That's the one that worries me the most.
The underquilt protector has shock cord that runs through the channels at the top. I've taken those two shock cord loops, stretched them out, and clipped them at the top over my ridge line using a carabiner. Yeah, I have one of my packs hung up from the suspension of my hammock. It actually looks as if it's stayed remarkably dry so far. So that's why you double up on those tent stakes. The stake did pull out, but the log held it.
The underquilt protector got soaked, but the underquilt underneath is still dry. I'm amazed. That worked really well. I did feel just a little bit of mist on my face as I was laying in the hammock during the worst of the downpour, but I didn't get wet.
All right, so now that we know that the small asymmetrical tarp and underquilt protector combination will keep me dry during a terrible storm, the ultimate question is, how does it compare to simply carrying a bigger tarp? Do you save money? Do you save weight? Is there any benefit? Let's find out with some data. The tarp was 8.6 ounces, that's 244 grams. The 2QZQ underquilt protector, which was the lightest I found, is 5.4 ounces, that's 153 grams. Take those in combination, we put them down here in the tarp underquilt protector column. We have 14 ounces, which is 397 grams. The tarp itself is 73 inches wide. That's 185.4 centimeters, and it costs $160. The War Bonnet Thunderfly tarp, it's only 13.4 ounces if you get the sil polyester version in 20D. That's 379 grams. It's 103 inches wide, and that's 262 centimeters for $142 if you, these are both if you don't upgrade it by adding panel pulls and center tie-outs. The Hammock Gear Quest tarp, 12.38 ounces. It's 350 grams even. It's 114 inches wide. That's 289.6 centimeters, and it only costs $104. Finally, we have the Dutchware Xenon Hex Tarp. That's the lightest. It's 12.31 ounces, so quite a bit lighter than that. That's only 349 grams. It also is 114 inches wide, which is also 289.6 centimeters, and it costs $155. So using the Asym Tarp does not save you weight or money.